Welcome to the Row One Seat One podcast. Cracking this boy open here. This is a passion fruit mosaic cider from Potter's Craft Cider.
Ooh, sounds tasty.
It's oh, I like that. I do like that. That's pretty fantastic. Yeah, I'm encouraging alcoholism one podcast at a time. I am here with
I have a I have a cherry limeade sparkling water from Aldi. So if you're
much
not a
healthier than
drinker,
mine.
there
Much
you go.
healthier than mine there. um I'm here. The voice you hear on the other end is you know him even if you don't know him. Nick Maniwa, um, a wrestling person of all ilks, basically, literally since birth, basically.
Pretty much.
Um, and you live this fascinating life in the world of professional wrestling, and you have met people who have had one match and been done, and you've met people who are now millionaires and many millionaires.
Yes.
So I think I thought you'd be a very interesting person to have on just to talk about your life in professional wrestling. We talked a little bit earlier, like you were born into this shit. Literally, tell me about that.
Yeah, pretty much. For people that do not know, I got into wrestling because my sister Patty married Ian Rotten, or she started dating Ian Rotten in '93. But before that, my sister would be the concession stand lady or the merch lady or whatever they raffle, whatever the Jarrett promotions needed help with, especially at Louisville Gardens here locally. But she would be, up to Evansville. She didn't really go down to, the TV tapings or anything like that, but she would, go to Memphis and go to Jonesboro, Arkansas, and have people jump in the car and give people rides, and Jimmy Dundee's jumping in, or I Steve Austin asked for half of my tuna sub from Subway, and just she just has some real stories, and if anyone that went through the Jarrett promotion, she's met them, and oh, this person's an ass. Can we cuss on here?
Of course, so fucking say
Okay,
whatever you want. Yeah,
this person's an asshole, or oh, I love them, or whatever. My mom always told a story about the Road Warriors coming to my house when we were younger. I don't know if that's a true story or not, but we had a LOD 8x10 with the fake autograph on it on our refrigerator for 20 years.
love that.
So yeah, Ian and Patty got together, and then it's '94, and I'm seeing Super J Cup because Ian's a big tape collector, or I'm seeing ECW, and I'm seeing Sabu for the first time, and just all this crazy stuff that fire death matches and Terry Funk and Cactus Jack and all this
And you're
crazy
you're
stuff.
how old at the time? Because most of us didn't discover this until like we got it like fifth hand tapes, in the late
Right.
'90s.
I was born in '88.
Okay, yeah.
So, I'm 5, 6, 7 years old watching this
You're a
stuff. And then,
kindergartner watching the Super J
right,
Cup. Yeah,
right.
that's incredible.
And then IWA starts up in '96.
Mhm.
They had a show in April of '96. And I don't know if you know anything about Kentucky weather, but there was like a blizzard in April. So instead of drawing a million people like he thought, he didn't draw very well. And then in October of that year, we found what everyone calls the old Kmart building, and we ran the first show. That's what everyone counts, or that's what they used to count as the first show for IWA. The start of something big in October of 1996, and I was there from the very beginning. I remember Rocco Rock was on the show from the Public Enemy, and he, patted me on the head. Hey, little buddy, nice to meet you. And like a few weeks before the Headbangers went to the WWF, they like got the call on like a prehistoric cell phone telling them, "Hey, we're gonna sign you," and they were in the IWA locker room when they
Oh, that
got
is
that
so
call.
cool. That is
And
very
there's
cool.
a picture of me like 8 years old with Thrasher, from in the concession stand, just crazy stuff like that, man.
So I guess my question is, I mean, wrestlers were normal people to you. Famous wrestlers, or people who are becoming famous. This was your norm. Um, Do you realize that it wasn't everybody else's norm, or is that
I
that was just all you knew, and like that was how you just, oh yeah, I was hanging out with people who were on WFTV. This I'm in third grade. Like.
Right. I did realize that. I remember so many times. Like I remember once Billy Jack Haynes came over to talk to Ian about. I don't know if he was in USWA at the time or if he had left, but potentially jumping to IWA because at some point there in the late '90s, we were at IWA, drawing 300, 350 every single week. We had a liquor license, so we had beer, and we're doing stuff that they're not doing at Louisville Gardens. And all these USWA guys, Doug Gilbert, PG-13, Flash Flanagan, all these guys start jumping to IWA, and it became like a thing. Like, oh, this is the new kid in town. This is Ian used to have a hotline that he sold tapes on and would read Wrestling Observers
This was
on
the
and give out
90s. Yeah, no, that's everyone had a hotline. Yeah, everyone
give out news or
one nine
whatever.
hundred ninety nine. Yeah,
Right. And yeah, and people would hit him up and say, "Oh, I just left the Gardens. It was, 3 roll-ups and a bullshit finish for the fourth match, and then whatever for the main event. We want that ECW style. We want extreme wrestling." And that's pretty much what made him start up IWA was, people asking for it. People wanted to see, him and Pondo and Ox Harley and legends like that.
I was saying, what were the influences in that early? You mentioned, I mean, ECW is parallel,
Right. Right.
to IWA's beginnings and stuff like that. And then, obviously, everything is happening over in Japan. Um, since you were privy to all that, what were you seeing as the influences in those early days?
Yeah. I mean, I was just MLJ just hit me up and we were talking about some Masanaga. He was watching an old Wing show, and
Yep.
Masanaga had an Ian Rotten shirt on, and he was like, "How crazy is that?" And I was like, "Dude, I used to have a picture where they had traded T-shirts, and they're wearing each other's stuff." But Ian and Axel really started this deathmatch stuff in the U.S.
Mhm.
Obviously there was stuff in Japan, but it's them doing barbed wire bad and thumbtack matches, and even
Taipei. I mean, the
Taipei,
Taipei
of
stuff
course,
was,
yeah. And
legend,
you want to know a
groundbreaking.
crazy story about that is my mom used to work at a bar, and the glass used for that match was beer bottles from her bar. Like Ian and Axel had to bring their own gimmicks to use. Like no one would make them at the ECW arena. They like busted open a bunch of beer bottles and taped it all up and shipped it when they went out there, and that's the glass they used. But just talking about my mom working at the bar, I remember Gangrel, Vampire Warrior, and Luna Vachon just like hanging out in my house, and just my mom loved them. They would go up to the bar, see my mom, hang out, and my nephew, Patty's son Joe, was scared of Gangrel because he had the fangs. So like one time we come in from school, 8, 9 years old, and uh, my nephew goes in before me, and he's only 6 months younger than me, but he goes in before me and he sees Gangrel and he's like, "Ah!" and takes off running. And then I just walk in and I'm like, "Hi, Dave." Just, sit down. But, I do understand that I lived a very privileged life when it comes to being a wrestling fan and, just hanging out with legends and hanging out with people that would go on to be, multimillionaires.
Now, who were your heroes growing up? Because your heroes were literally right there. I mean, like, people who were everybody else's heroes were in your living room. So
Right,
who were
right,
the people you're just like, that's my guy.
right. I was a big Shawn Michaels fan when I was a kid. Obviously, for like just heroes, my mom was my hero. My mom was
Mhm.
a single mom. I have a deadbeat dad. Never saw him unless he was violently ill and they thought he was dying. And then they
Oh,
would call me up and say, "Hey, your dad's dying." I'd be like, "All right, see you, pal. Thanks for coming. Thanks for nothing." Uh, just I had so many, especially in '96 when Nitro starts, and then you
mhm.
see Rey Mysterio, and you see all these guys, and being exposed to people even early on, like I wouldn't say Sabu's a hero of mine, but he was definitely someone that I was like, this guy is insane. And you go to school and nobody knows who Sabu is. Nobody's watching ECW as a, second, third grader. Like I got to meet Harley Race in 2001 at a Mid-American wrestling show in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And, I'm like, I get to meet Harley Race. And someone's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who that is. And I'm like, he's the greatest wrestler on God's green earth. You don't know who I'm talking about? And I'm like, no, sorry. I was like, he managed Vader. And they're like, I know Vader. It's like, oh, go to hell.
So were you trading tapes too as a young person, or at what point did you get into that?
I wasn't super into trading tapes just because Ian had a tape collection himself.
Sure.
So I would just go grab something off the shelf, put it on. He's like, hey, you can't watch Extreme Warfare Volume 2, where Kimona dances atop the ECW arena. You can't watch that one. It's banned. You can't watch it. But, I would just, throw whatever in. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. And, I would go to my cousin's house and he'd be like, oh, let's watch WWF Mania or Livewire or whatever the morning show with Superstars. Yeah. And I'd be like, well, USWA is on channel 3 right now, bro. It's on channel 6. Like, I'd rather watch that. PG-13 is going to be on there. And, I'm just so lucky to live in a area that's rich with wrestling because, there's a couple people I follow on Twitter. Elliot's Wrestling. I really enjoy all his stuff, and he's a great historian. And he put out a thing the other day, like PG-13's like top 5, and I was like, they've been in my top 5, my whole life because I got to see them. Get on the
bandwagon, yeah.
I got to see them, as baby faces, as heels, as the Memphis guys coming into the deathmatch group, and they hate the deathmatch guys, and
do you personally have any Jamie Dundee stories? Because he's one of the most fascinating people.
Dude, I love Jamie Dundee. One time at a Mitch Ryder show, this was 2007-ish. We were MySpace friends, and he walks by me. He goes, "Hey, Nick Maniwa." I was like, "What's up, man?" He goes, "You got any marijuana?" I go, "No, Jamie, I do not." He goes, "You mean to tell me you got all the MySpace friends and you ain't got no marijuana?" I go, "No, sir, I do not." At the same show, there was a local restaurant or whatever had catered the show. So they had, a bunch of cold cuts and, whatever. And Gypsy Joe was there just hanging out. Making
Tennessee legend, Gypsy Joe.
Yeah. Shout out Reverend Dan Wilson. I saw Jamie Dundee take a family platter of cookies, that you would have at like a funeral or a Christmas party, like 75 cookies, 100 cookies. And he gives it to Joe and he goes, "Here you go, Joe. These are for you. They told me to tell you that." And then Joe opens the cookies up and just starts eating the cookies. And it's like, who's going to take them away from him? I'm not taking them away.
I'm not fighting Gypsy Joe.
He can have those cookies.
Those are his cookies now.
My most recent Jamie Dundee story, and I unfortunately did not get a chance to talk to him before he left, but I did this show last year for Hooligan Championship Wrestling. And during the day was like a Memphis wrestling convention. Oh, cool. So they had Jerry Lawler, they had Jimmy Hart, Bill Dundee, Austin Idol, all these guys. But then they started adding like the Hardy Boys. And so it became a real big thing. Mm-hmm. But they said Dave Brown from Memphis Wrestling was going to be there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I unfortunately never got a chance to meet Lance. Lance and Dave are like my all time because, I grew
up Dave your weatherman too, by the way?
He was a weatherman. He wasn't my weatherman. Okay. But he was a weatherman back in the day. So I pretty much took this booking to meet Dave Brown. I get to the building and I'm like, "Hey, is Dave Brown here?" He goes, "Oh, he didn't make it." I was like, "No." But at that same show, there's a bunch of vendors with Memphis stuff. And I just hear Jamie Dundee go, "Hey, man, do I get this picture on a discount if I'm in it? That's me right there. I'm in that picture right there." And, he was trying to work the vendors to give him a discount for the pictures of himself.
Amazing worker. By the way, speaking of that, I've had the opportunity to see Bill Dundee's car.
Yes.
Explain it for the audience if you haven't, people who have not seen Bill Dundee's car.
So for a short while in 2013 and 2014, I was booking a small promotion, a feeder promotion for IWA Mid-South called Evolution Pro Wrestling. we ran shows at Jammers, and we actually booked Bill Dundee once for a tag match. And Randy Hales was the guy that drove him to the show.
So
But
cool.
to get to that show, they drove the custom Bill Dundee Cadillac with Bill Dundee painted. Is it on the hood or is it
It's
on the
wrapped.
side?
It's wrapped on the sides. I think
Right.
it's on the
Yeah.
hood too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wrapped. Yes.
It's something. It's something to see. There's pictures of it online. If you search Bill Dundee's car, I'm sure it will pop up. But at the merch table, during intermission, I'm looking at all Bill's stuff. I'm gonna want to get a picture with Bill before he goes. And Randy Hales goes, "You like Memphis wrestling?" I was like, "Oh yeah, man." He goes, "I bet you don't know who I am." I said, "Yeah, you're Randy Hales." He goes, "Wow." And I love Randy Hales. I don't know how you could mistake him with his his crooked eye.
So let's bring. I was going to bring this up later, but I mean, we've kind of segued really well into it. Kentuckiana.
Yes.
Um, you are in the fertile crescent, really, of independent wrestling.
Right.
Like the in between the Tigris and Euphrates, there was Kentuckiana. Um, explain Kentuckiana wrestling. Explain the history it's provided. Explain why Kentuckiana. Um, so the area, as I'm describing, people may not even know Kentuckiana. The area in kind of where Kentucky borders Indiana, Louisville's in that general area,
Right.
Jeffersonville. There's probably, what do you figure, about a 30-mile radius where that's really the hub of independent wrestling
Yeah,
there.
pretty much. Yeah.
Hub.
We of course, back in the days of Jarrett Promotions and stuff, there was Louisville Gardens, which is downtown Louisville. And then as the commission and stuff got uh, more serious about blood and all that stuff, that's when IWA made the jump over to Indiana. But obviously, Jared Promotions started running Louisville as a loop, so it would be Louisville would be every Tuesday at the Gardens. There's bootleg T-shirts on the internet that says Tuesday night at Louisville Gardens that you can purchase, but every Tuesday, and even during the dying days of USWA in like '97 ish, Louisville was still drawing pretty well, and even Evansville was drawing pretty well. Evansville is about 2 hours
Hmm.
from Louisville, but it was Monday night in Memphis, and then Tuesday in Louisville, and then Wednesday in Evansville, and then Thursday, they would find Arkansas or somewhere else in Kentucky or Tennessee, and when I was booking EPW, we always drew the most when we had old USWA names: Bill
Sure.
Dundee, Ricky Morton. People always wanted to see those people that they grew up with. Handsome Jimmy would come and do a show and then go to like a sports card uh, business and sign autographs or whatever. And obviously there's a ton of wrestling fans here. OVW is still running every single week. Derby City Wrestling was running for a little bit. Grindhouse runs every last Sunday or every fourth Sunday of the month in Jeffersonville, which is right over the bridge from Louisville in Jeffersonville. If you ever want to come to a show, we got a big show on the 26th, Rumble, which is our
Are
Royal
you in
Rumble
the
ripoff.
arena? Let's talk about the arena.
Yes, at the Jeffersonville Arena. Two Tough Tony is the landlord. And if you have enough money to run a wrestling show, he will provide a building with a ring, with a bathroom, with a sometimes a bell.
Possibly, maybe, probably not functioning bathroom. Yes.
Well, there's two bathrooms now, so
Oh wow, we
if
upgraded. We've upgraded
we,
since I've been there.
yeah, I know we're up, baby. We still, it's if you go into the locker room, not the greatest smell. There's a lot of mold down there, but
Well, you and I are
nowhere
very
you
blessed because there are very few wrestling specific venues in the country, and one is
right,
in my town and one is in your town.
right, absolutely,
Um,
yeah,
and it's just it's because everywhere I feel bad for people in other parts of the country where you have to get a rec center or try to get some nights at Columbus Hall or something like that. It's just not conducive
right,
to wrestling. But I've been to the arena, and obviously TWE, where it's just custom designed for professional wrestling.
Right.
It's such a different experience than just going to something that they try to make into a wrestling arena.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. I was telling my buddy Mike Ruff, who lives in California, he's like, they don't really have just a wrestling venue here. And I was like, bro, it's one stop shop at the arena. They have a concession stand. So if you want to sell concessions, you can, or tell them, hey, you can come and sell concessions. Two Tough Tony's wife, Amy, will come and sell concessions. And if you need a music guy, there's a guy, Eric Montgomery, who's been doing music in this area for 20 plus years. I used to do music for IWA Mid-South in 2002 to 2008, 9-ish, and actually taught him how to do the music we used to do ring rentals. So backyard groups are just people that want to throw around
Kids'
their
birthday
friend.
parties, yeah.
Yep,
Hmm.
would come and give Ian however much money and do a ring rental. And sometimes they had a music guy, sometimes they didn't, and I was the de facto choice because I was the IWA music guy. And then he started hanging out and coming, and I'm not a technician by any means. I knew how to fade up, I knew how to fade down, I knew
That's a
how to.
start.
Back in my day, Ben, I don't know if these kids listening nowadays. Back in my day, we had a real CD player, and we had to switch out CDs, and
Catch
uh,
him at the right point. Yeah.
and God forbid if your song started 30 seconds in, and I'd have to sit there and hold the button down. I remember at the infamous Ted Petty 2004, I had a CD changer, and I had mix CDs of everyone's themes. But if they brought their own CD, then I had to, switch to number two and then go back to number one, and just craziness. Nowadays, kids can just click a button and it's.
Entirely unrelated. The art of making a mix CD for a girl that you like.
Yes, that's how I got my wife. I sent my wife a mix CD in the mail.
Oh, that's so good. That's so I've made more than a few in my day, and it's
How
um
many recently? Are you
CDs.
sending? Are you sending Spotify playlists now instead of?
I'm just saying, hey, check out this song. I like it very much. It's so fucking lazy. But it's no, but well, no, you know what it is? It just like there was the craft. Spotify playlists are so lazy. It just like boink, 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 boink. Where
Right,
like
right.
back in our day,
Yes,
um, we had to like labor over those mix CDs. And does it tell the right story? Does it pick up and then slow down? And there was an art and a science to
right.
making the right mix CD for
Especially
someone
for
you
a
love.
girl.
Yeah.
I was making custom mixes in high school for like $5 or $10, and people were like hitting me up to download instrumentals of songs so they could write raps over them. And I got the new
The
Afro Man
original SoundCloud.
CD. Right, right. Yeah, Nick Maniwa SoundCloud. I was the originator, and Afro Man. I was burning copies. Hey, I got Afro Man for $5. No offense, Afro Man, if you're out there. I met him. He's great. He's still making music. I think Mouse was trying to book him for a Fright Night. I
Oh,
sent
they're
him his
great.
email more than once to get Mouse to book him, and it never happened. So maybe next year.
It's awesome. Anyways, we digress. We digress. So,
Yes.
you, I mean, there were points where they're running that arena every night.
There's uh especially IWA, we were doing twice a week, and sometimes we do 3 nights for 1 week. If we could, so and so's coming in, we can get a deal. Uh, IWA for a little bit in 2004 was doing quad shots, which is 4 shows, and it was always like, we'll do Evansville on Wednesday, and then we'll go to New Albany, which is kind of close to
Yeah.
Louisville, on Thursday, and then from there we'll go to Highland, Indiana, for Friday and Saturday. And what always sucked was, Wednesday and Thursday wouldn't draw the best, and then in Highland, where we always drew well, you'd have to pay the bills from Wednesday and Thursday because there was no money to be made on Wednesday and Thursday. But so many. I've seen so many wrestling shows, especially just in this
I
area.
was gonna say more nights than not over the last 20 years, there have been wrestling shows within a 30-mile radius of your house.
Right, right.
That's a good way to put it, right? Like, I mean, like it's weeknights, weekends. On weekends, you probably have your choice of, anywhere from half a dozen, even
Right.
now, you know.
And OVW runs every single week. Uh, there's always people that go, "Hey Nick, are you going to be at the ABC 123 show on Saturday?" It's like, no, man, I'm not. Like, just because the wrestling show's happening, I'm not. I always send them the dentist stamp. I'm not booked for one thing. Like, I'm not booked just because the show's happening in Kentuckiana. Like, you have to hit me up. I'm not gonna. There's very few that I'm gonna show up as a patron unless it's. We used to always go to the. Uh, there used to be a Fed where Reed Bentley started way back in the day called Livewire Championship Wrestling, and it was basically backyard wrestling in a building, and it was so bad. It was like $5 wrestling. It was like
Building.
Mania, and me and Jess and me, Mitch Page, and for a little bit there was a group of 7 or 8 of us that would go and just make fun of these guys, and be hecklers, and it's probably not as nice, but they thought they were living their dream, and we were living ours by watching them
Well,
perform.
the joke is that me and Dave McKinney, Armadillo Dave, are Statler and Waldorf at Action Wrestling.
Okay,
Yeah,
I could see that.
yeah. We sit there like, this show's too long,
Right.
which is generally all every show's
Every
too long.
show,
Every
every
show's too
show.
long. Yeah, it doesn't matter who the booker is. It doesn't matter if
I
you're
did
over 2 hours.
a
Yeah,
show in Portland, Oregon, in December, a no ring deathmatch show, and there was 4 matches, and it was like, show's over, show
oh,
begins, show's over.
my heart, my heart. Oh, it sounds so good.
Shout out Pacific North Death if you're a
There,
deathmatch fan, definitely check them
Jameson
out.
Shook is working for them
Yes,
coming up
he
soon.
is.
Yeah,
Anakin
yep.
Murphy's going to be out
Yep.
there. I think it's Jameson and John Wayne Murdoch. So pack a lunch, kid, and tie them real tight, because you're gonna. I feel like John Wayne Murdoch is the best deathmatch wrestler in the
Yeah,
world.
I agree.
I feel he's the absolute best, and I always say Memphis bullshit. John Wayne Murdoch is my favorite John Wayne Murdoch, because for a little bit there in IWA, we were at the Memphis flea market, but the commentary booth was right next to the locker room, and there's not a ceiling on the locker room. So
Yeah.
I could just, hey, go do this, go do this. And John Wayne was like at his most Memphis bullshit. And, they would be cutting a promo on John Wayne. And then I'd just go over to the wall and be like, hey, John Wayne, go out there and say, no, you didn't. And then John Wayne would come out and be, I didn't do that. You're making it up. This is a conspiracy. It's always F me, F Murdoch. But, John Wayne's the best. He's helped me a lot. He got me on that Pacific North Death show. He's, really, any place that they need a commentator or just anything, he'll be like, hey, what about Maniwa? Maniwa can jump in with me. So shout out John Wayne Murdoch. Reed Bentley, another guy. Reed Bentley's one of my best friends in the entire world, and he's done nothing but help me out. So I love the rejects. I feel like, and Reed Bentley doesn't get the credit for being as good as he is. He's kind of slowed down. He likes being at home. He likes doing vacations and cruises and hikes and stuff like that.
Terrible. Terrible.
He likes having a real life. So
God, no.
he's not getting out there as much. But they had a banger against Super Crazy and Gringo Loco on GCW on Sunday. Super Crazy busted his ass.
Super Crazy is a gem. Now you mentioned the rejects kind of from that area. Who are some other, legends in that area that people nationally may not know, and kind of like, people who really contributed to the growth of some more well-known people.
Right. I mean, definitely. What's crazy, Ben, is IWA Mid-South was running every single week during the Charlestown era, which is the Blue Barn, as CM Punk likes to call it. We were running every Wednesday and every Saturday, and they would have a crazy death match. It would be me, Mitch Page versus Corporal Robinson on, Saturday. They would have a crazy death match. Go, all right, I still want a piece of you next week. On Wednesday, I'm going to beat your ass in a thumbtack match, or I'm 100 light tubes or whatever. And I think, we didn't really get that love is because CZW on the East Coast had that magazine press, or they had the internet press where, we're in Charlestown, Indiana, which is a nothing town in Indiana, about 30 miles or 30 minutes from Louisville. Just nothing going on there, but these guys are killing themselves. And, we're bringing in people like Nick Mondo and all these, real Abdullah the Butcher and Road Dogg and Simon Diamond. And once ECW went down, we had a show with Sandman, Simon Diamond, Dawn Marie, uh, Blue Meanie, Jasmine, Spike Dudley. Spike Dudley came in a few times. Sabu was always popping up, and if you know the history of Sabu, sometimes he doesn't make it to the venues, but
I've heard this.
and it happened at IWA Mid-South a few times, but he always found his way to Charlestown, and they had some real classics. Wrestled Chris Hero there one time, just insanity.
Who was the most surprisingly nice, down to earth person among those ECW people?
Spike Dudley's great. Sabu, you can peel back the layers of the onion there.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? The last time Sabu came in was 2021, and the building that we were running in Indianapolis had 20 steps going up to the locker room. Ian Rotten, with bad knees, did not like to go up those steps.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sabu was bad everything.
Right. Sabu made it up the steps. So Ian could not make it up the steps. So he goes, "Hey, Nick, you're going to have to go tell Sabu what he's doing for the night." And I was like, oh, shit. Tell Sabu, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal maniac, what he's doing? Couldn't have been nicer. I was like, hey, man, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit your music. You're going to come out. You're going to grab this chair. It's going to be right by the locker room. You're going to throw it at a guy, and then you're done. He's like, sounds good. Thanks. And I was like, my God, this guy that I, grew up watching, was scared to even talk to. I think I really won him over one time. He trained this guy, CJ Otis, in the mid-2000s, and at a show at it was kind of like a school, but the wrestling ring was on a stage, and then the crowd was like auditorium style. Mm-hmm. So there's a big curtain and everything. And one time for his kid, I started the slow clap, and Sabu noticed me, and then he even started clapping, for his kid. I was like, I think Sabu likes me now because I clapped for CJ Otis, which I'll take, man, whatever.
A lot of other people in that area as well. Larry D, Too Tough Tony. People like that. Who really
Mitch Page, Corporal Robinson.
Yeah, exactly.
All these guys that Mitch Page and Corporal Robinson were in the crowd in the 90s at IWA shows and was like, you know what, I want to do this. And Corporal Robinson trained with someone else, but Mitch Page trained with Ian. Cash Flow, another guy who's now on Tulsa King, and Sly Stallone really likes him and wants him in all of his projects and stuff like that. Cash Flow, another homegrown IWA Mid-South guy. Of course, Mickey Knuckles. Mm-hmm. Just so many people that we got to see, and then later on, Larry D, John Wayne Murdoch, Reed Bentley, even Mance Warner and guys like that who trained with Billy Rock. But then the first time I ever met Mance Warner, he comes in. I go, "Hey man, I'm Nick. Nice to meet you." He's like, "Hey, I'm Mance," and I was like, "Here's what we're doing for tonight. You can say whatever you want." He goes, "I can say whatever I want?" I said, "You can say whatever you want." I said, don't touch the fans. Don't spit on the fans, but you can say whatever you want. And it was like I created a monster with that one sentence because, if you've seen early Mance Warner in IWA, it's, he's one time this lady was holding a baby, trying to get at him, almost dropping the baby because she's so mad at Mance Warner. Hey, you son of a bitch,
He's always been that way.
He used to rile them up, boy.
Yeah, he's always been. I saw him pretty early on, and I saw him about a month ago at holding the belt for GCW, and still the same guy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people
and knows where he came from.
Absolutely. He's like you said, still the same guy. Still has he got to be in a heel group with Tracy Smothers and Marvelous Mitch Ryder, and got to be in locker rooms with Todd Morton and Dutch Mantell and Bull Payne and Too Tough Tony, and one time Mitch Ryder cut a promo on John Wayne Murdoch. They were having a dog collar match, and if you don't know Mitch Ryder, he's a very southern, bleach blonde hair. He would wear a pink singlet and black long tights, and he goes, "John Wayne Murdoch, I'm going to beat you like the dog that you are, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put you out of your misery," and yada, yada, yada. One take, didn't even think about it. and I'm the one to cut, filming the promos, and I cut it, and Manser, a year in, maybe less than that, goes, "That was awesome. I want to do that. I don't want to do flippy dippies. I don't want to do super hurricane runners. I want to
Yeah.
be able to do that, do a promo in one take, and a good promo on top of it."
And he's the fucking
Right.
champ at GCW,
I,
their
I
biggest promotion in the country.
every time he comes out on GCW, both me and my wife are like, "Is it tonight? Is a fan going to swing on him tonight?" And knowing Mance like I do, I think he would be all
He
about
wants
it.
it. He wants it so much.
I
Yeah,
told
no.
Reed Bentley when he first started. At those Live Wire Championship Wrestling shows, he wore a white T-shirt, and he had professional gear. He had a comb over, and I only knew him through this other guy, Cage Cutler, as a acquaintance. I didn't know him very well, and I sent him a long thing of like, "Hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't wear a T-shirt, don't do all of Bryan Danielson's moves." And he could have been like, "Who the hell is this guy? Piss off." But he took that and was like, "Hey, man, thanks for the advice." And he's a deathmatch guy. And I told Reed Bentley, I was like, "I want someone to stab you. That's how much heat I want you to have in
Mhm.
Kentuckiana. I want people to be so mad that they're pulling out knives and they're trying to shiv you." Didn't
Um,
happen, thankfully.
you mentioned one person that I wanted to see if you had any stories on, Tracy Smothers.
Tracy
Um,
Smothers. Just, I got to see, Tracy very early on through USWA and then later IWA Mid-South. And he always said, "Ian always gives me a job when I get fired. I got fired from ECW. I'm back for Ian, the next week." Or he was he was a trainer for down in Memphis for the developmental. They let him go. He was there, the next Thursday, and just a crazy SOB. And if you've never seen the Tracy Smothers Riot, it's on YouTube for free. Definitely a spectacle to see. Me and Mike Ruff did a podcast about it where we're just talking about it and talking about all the stories. Uh, Francine was on the show, and she knew Tracy for so long, and I saw her at a show last year, and she was like, "I still don't know if that was a shoot. I still don't know what was going on. I don't understand." One time Tracy was a mystery opponent for Aaron Williams. Aaron Williams just made his singles GCW debut
mhm.
this past Sunday.
Yep, love Aaron. Yep.
A great professional wrestler. I
Hmm.
hope that's the beginning of
Yes,
Aaron Williams
he's
getting.
earned it too.
Yes,
Hmm.
he's been great for he's been great in Southern Indiana since 2016, and he was the king of Kentuckiana for however many years. He was the only guy that ever became the IWA Mid South champion 8 times. The only other guy was Ian Rotten. Had IWA not died, I feel like Aaron would have broke that record. He would have been 9, 10, on and on. Champion. But anyway, Tracy was the mystery opponent. He was doing these open challenges, and we got to, Tyler Matrix answered the challenge. He jumped from OVW to join IWA, and then one night it's going to be Tracy. And Tracy's big thing when he would do shows, he always had a spread of merch, wrestling mask and magazines and
Hmm.
pictures and all DVDs, all this stuff.
If he could sell it, he'd try to
He
give
he
it to yeah.
was he was worried that he wasn't going to be able to sell merch because he was a surprise. And Ian goes, "Tracy, why don't you have Nick go out there, grab your stuff, and put it underneath the merch table, and then after your match, you can just go from the ring to the merch table, put out your stuff, and then there you go." And he goes, "Oh yeah, man, yeah, man." And
What a pro.
I'm like, "Hey, can I have your keys?" He goes, "Oh, brother, thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it." I said, "Tracy, I'd take a bullet for you, man. Seriously, like you're
Yeah.
the best. Like I would do whatever for you." And went to his car, got his bag because they didn't want anyone to see Tracy out there grabbing the merch box or
Hmm. Makes sense.
grabbing his
Yep.
flag on the stick and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So I brought it in, put the merch under, and he thanked me 100 times. And he probably didn't know my name just because of all the concussions
Hmm.
and stuff. But he knew, like, oh, I see this guy at IWA. He loves me. He always puts me over. He's the commentator. He's
He's a
great.
friendly face. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
he even at the end there, when he was, I don't think he was sick yet, but he had been wrestling for so many years and very slow to get around, but he could still run that mouth and still get a reaction from the crowd. And he's just, no one cared like Tracy Smothers. No one cares like uh, those guys. And I always told people, like, go ask, like, especially the young kids, like, hey, you don't know how to do a forearm, go ask Chris Hero, he knows how to do them pretty well. Or Tracy's Mothers, didn't matter if you asked him to watch your match or not, he's watching the whole show, and he's going to critique you, but he's not going to do it meanly. He's going to give you constructive criticism to make you a better wrestler. And he did that every single time he was at IWA. There's so many pictures of Tracy in front of a monitor just watching. And then, he's talking to the kids and he's like, hey, do this, or
He
hey,
gave back. Yeah.
yeah. Like no one cared like Tracy. And God bless him. It broke my heart when he passed away. And, F cancer, as they say, but God bless him. I got nothing but love. Shout out to Tommy the Rich behind you as well.
Yeah, that's Ava's eventually gonna get it right at some point.
Right. Hopefully not. It pops me every time she does it. So,
Um, so came up in an environment where I was joking with you. If you're on TV in the year of our Lord 2025, you have worked in front of Nick Maniwa at some point, probably in front of not many people. Um,
right.
um, I mean, Joe, Punk, Hero. I mean, like Seth Rollins. I mean, everyone under the sun.
MJF. Yeah. There's so many.
Yeah,
Uh, there's so many guys like Top Flight was doing tryout shows and doing 2 or 3 shows in a weekend. And there's so many people, John Moxley and Claudio, and like literally everyone,
on
the
television
Outrunners.
right now. Yeah,
Right, the Outrunners did a 2 or 3 month little program for us for a little bit. And if I've never seen you live, if you never worked IWA, uh, there's people like the Briscoes that it didn't work out. We booked Slim J once and he missed his flight or something like that. So, never got Slim J in, but, Amazing
everyone else.
Red,
Yeah,
right. I wish there was still something like IWA around nowadays where we could, teach the young kids how to wrestle in front of the same crowd and just get better. There's people like Sage Phillips and Mance Warner and Reed Bentley himself that had to wrestle in front of the same crowd every single week, and you can't. You might get away with it once or twice doing the same thing, but after, like I told you off the air, before she passed away, Miss Donna was ruthless. She was sitting at the corner of the entranceway. If you were a babyface, she's hugging you. If you're a heel, she's yelling at you or flipping you off.
we have one of those fighting Granny. We have fighting Granny,
yeah,
man.
right. Fighting Granny down there at TWE. Donna wasn't much of a fighter, but I was watching something recently, and Punk comes out, and he's doing one of these, and she like smacks Punk in the face, and it's like no one gets away with that, but Miss Donna. So, all those IWA classic fans, shout it out.
Who is one person that you saw like a couple matches in, and you go, oh no, that's the guy. I know immediately.
Dude, there's as much as people say about Ian, and we unfortunately do not have a relationship anymore due to personal stuff, but he had an eye for talent.
Certainly did.
He always knew. And even people that maybe didn't connect the first time or the second time or even the 10th time, he'd be like, I'm going to make people care about you. And he did. Mance Warner went from the despised heel to the king babyface at IWA. Reed Bentley, another guy, was the most dastardly heel. Everyone hated him. And then he saved the day and turned babyface. And then he was the top babyface. And people like Congo Kong, who
love Congo Kong.
Congo
the
Kong's
first SCI I met him. Nicest guy in the world.
Congo Kong's great. He did a show. There was like an IWA Rebirth in like 2010 that didn't really take, and then he had started doing JCW and became Congo Kong. Mm-hmm. And Ian started booking him, and he saw something in him. He saw that, this guy was the guy, and he
And
put
Congo Kong is about 6'6", and with his hair, he's about 7'8".
right, and he's a lot smaller than he was at this
Mhm,
time. He was close to 400 pounds
mhm.
when he first started in IWA, and Ian was like, "I'm gonna make you the top guy," and it was Congo Kong versus Isaiah in the finals of the IWA title tournament, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's Isaiah's night. It's Isaiah's game. He's winning this. He's the hometown guy." Isaiah, another guy that started up with IWA Mid-South, coming from the backyard and then into IWA, and Congo Kong hit that big splash, bam, killed him, and Congo Kong ran with that title for like a year, maybe 400 days, until Isaiah finally beat him. He finally toppled the giant at the top of the mountaintop, and it was a very emotional type situation. But uh, you know, uh, anyone, and we were talking about him off air, but uh, I don't know if it's from being around IWA or just being around wrestling my entire life, but I see people and I'm like, oh, this if this person stays healthy, if this person stays out of his own way, if he stays out of his head, he could be something. Jackie Thad's one
Mhm.
that I think it just takes maybe a little bit of size on him, maybe some new gear, and
But it's there.
the wrestling's there.
Mhm.
The wrestling's there, and Larry D. That's his trainer, Larry D. and Mister Everything Max Sled out of Kentucky, that run Generation Next Pro Wrestling. They put their heavyweight title on him, and I saw him probably his fourth or fifth match in, and Larry came up to me before the match and said, "Hey man, watch this kid. I think he's going to be something." And he was right. He had a great match, and then 2 weeks later he wrestled Jake Christ. Jake Christ ain't someone that ain't gonna go hard as F, and he was right there with Jake Christ the whole time. And then he's had matches with Aaron Williams, and then he had a 30-minute Ironman match with Aaron Williams and hung. And then he had a match with Myron, and not to pull back the curtain, but I went to Myron and said, "Hey man, he hasn't been doing it this long, but just to let you know, he's hung with people like Jake. He's hung with people like Aaron." He goes, "Oh man, what? That tells me everything. I don't need to
Yep.
know anymore." And then afterwards, Myron was like, "Man, I'm really happy with that." He's like, "I can't wait until we can run it back, and it's going to be something." And just like I'm trying to think like off the top of my head, and then a million names are popping out,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
one's standing out. But just all these people that you would see every single week, and I put them over on one of our podcasts. Me and Mike Ruff has a podcast called Mid-South Memories, where it's a IWA Mid-South rewatch series
Mhm.
where we watch a show, we talk about it. If I have any stories, I'll tell them, whatever. And we did a show, and I was talking about Tyler Matrix and Logan James and Kevin Giza and Lucas Jacobs and Adam Slade. Those
Yep.
guys came into IWA in 2019, 2018 ish.
Tyler's one of the nicest people I've ever met, by the way.
He's I it hurts my heart that Tyler Matrix and Logan James weren't a tag team all over.
Yeah.
I There were so many shows at the arena that they just had these crazy matches that nobody saw or nobody was there. And then Kevin Giza, another guy that would be doing all this crazy stuff. And I would be like, stop doing that to your body. One time, Lucas Jacobs took, the Kurt Angle German suplex from the apron. He's going to German suplex him into the guardrail. It never happens. They always cut him off.
Mhm.
Lucas Jacobs took the German suplex into
Good
the
lord.
guardrail.
Good lord.
I
Nope.
was like,
Nope.
brother,
Hard pass.
for 50 people at the arena, no offense to the arena, no offense to the 50 people that were there, but you want to live a regular life later
I
on. You can't be
I
doing
thought
this.
I saw Logan James die. Um, he worked Stephen Bonner
Yes,
at Black Label,
yes. And
and he
Stephen
did
Bonner forgot how to catch dives.
forgot how to catch or didn't know. It just didn't know. And I heard the most sickening thud I've ever heard in my life, and I'm like, well, we it's over. It's over.
You know what's crazy is before that at a TPI, he used to do the big Taker Mania dive to the floor, and he overshot the person and went head first into the floor, had
Nope.
a giant goose egg and a Harry Potter zigzag in his head.
Jeez.
And uh, I think for that tournament, he was supposed to go pretty far or maybe even go to the finals. And he was so upset about messing up the plans instead of, this giant goose egg
Yeah,
on
yeah,
his.
you have a head on your head. Yeah.
God bless him. He's out of the wrestling business now. He's kind of fallen off the face of the earth. So if he ever hears this, I hope you're
Shouts out
doing
Logan
well,
James. Yeah.
Logan James. You're the man.
You've done commentary for forever.
Yes,
What makes good commentary? What makes bad commentary?
man. You know what's? I always tell people like I react the same way at home watching a show that I do on commentary.
Hmm.
I might not be calling the moves at home, but if there's a big dive, if there's a crazy, you know, I try not to scream in the commentary mics, but there was something in Columbus on Sunday, and if this is MLJ's leg, I grabbed it that hard because the guy hit brother so hard that I couldn't get it out of. I couldn't say it verbally, so I had to do it physically of just being like, you never want to be too cool. You never want to be someone that knows everything. I don't know. I don't know everything, and I'm still learning stuff now. Uh, my commentary career pretty much started for IWA Mid-South regularly in 2013, but there was a few shows in 2008 where I was still doing the sound, the music, and I looked over and nobody's at the microphone with Mike Z or my friend Jim Fannin, and I would just go over there and jump on commentary just to do it.
Yeah.
And I was terrible. It's bad. It's real bad. I'm just screaming into the microphone. Mike Burns from Smart Mark Video was like, tell Maniwa to quit screaming. And that was my natural instinct. I always try to have some kind of notes for the wrestlers just to give them some credibility. Hey, this guy's beaten this guy or he's won this championship. And you just don't think you know more, and don't think you're there's always going to be someone better than you unless you're on AEW, on TNA, on WWE, the top of the top, New Japan.
Hmm.
There's always going to be somebody that knows more. So don't act like you're the you're not Mike Tenay, man. Like just have fun and don't talk smack. Don't bury anyone. Don't try not to bury the referees, and try to make the most sense of stuff if you can. Sometimes, especially in independent wrestling, that is very hard to try to.
I couldn't do it. That's the thing. I've talked with Mose about this.
Right,
I'm just like I could never do commentary because I could not shit on things that I don't like.
right,
That's
right,
got to
right.
be very hard because you see something that's not great and you still have to sell it.
Yeah, and that's what I always tell people. Uh, Kids will come up to me. I say kids, but I'm 37, so they're definitely kids to me. But they'll be like, "Hey, do you have any nitpicks or any critiques?" And I'm like, when I'm calling it, I'm not looking for that stuff, so I can't give you anything now. But once it's released, I can watch it back and tell you something. But I'm trying to hide all the bad stuff that's happened. I'm trying to hide the botches. I'm trying to, oh, he didn't quite get all that one. Oh, he didn't. My new thing is like, oh, he didn't get the impact on that one that he likes to get, or something like that, where you're
Yeah.
saying, he hit something, but it wasn't, perfect.
Hmm. Um, what are your favorite types of match? Because you've called everything from you know technical masterpieces to the scummiest of death matches.
Right.
um,
You're not
um,
wrong about that.
what are your favorite type of matches to call?
Man, I always feel like wrestling is at its best as a trail mix, as a
Okay,
Chex mix.
love that.
You get a pretzel, you get a cereal piece,
Hmm.
you get a rye bread piece or something. I like everything, man. There's not much in that happens in a professional ring, a professional wrestling ring that I do not like. There's guys that I'm not the biggest fan of, like a Will Ospreay or someone like that. Not a
Same.
Will Ospreay guy. I can respect his talent. I can respect what he does in there, but he's not for me. People like that. But I I just love wrestling, man. I love seeing like on Sunday the GCW show. I keep bringing it up. If you haven't watched it, definitely check it out on Triller. But they had a little bit of everything. Everything had a story to it. They start off with the young kids scramble, and then they have something with Alley Catch, who is in the title picture, and then they have the rejects against Gringo and Super Crazy, and they're breaking out doors and chairs and doing all this stuff. Then here comes Rhino and Joey Janela, and they're breaking out tables and doors and everything they could find. And then here comes Aaron Williams and Matt Cardona. They're not doing any of the table stuff, but
Absolutely not. Yeah.
they're having a great wrestling match. Cardona, bring out, the best of Ohio, whoever the best you got, Ohio. And here comes Aaron Williams, who is the best of Ohio, if you ask me.
Mhm.
And they had a great match that was just hard strikes and, Cardona talking smack and getting his heat, and people being behind Aaron Williams because he's an unsanctioned pro guy. And it was at that building, and they had just seen him earlier survive Isaiah Broner for the unsanctioned show. So they're totally.
Well, that's the word with Isaiah Broner, survive.
Brother. And Gary J just barely survived. He gave him an F5 into the chairs.
Good Lord.
There's a fan cam clip of Isaiah Broner going, "Move. I'm serious. Move." And all the fans scatter. And at one point, I forget what match it was, but I muted myself and screamed, "Move," for a dive spot because they were going to get jumped on. If I know you by name, I will shout your name out and say move if you're not moving fast enough on a dive.
If you have not seen Isaiah Broner, picture just one big giant muscle as a person. That dude is jacked and he's powerful and he's so cool.
Hold on, my wife got home from work and she doesn't have her key, I guess.
Oh, sure. We're gonna vamp here a little bit. Hi, Jess.
Boston Nougat says hi, Jess.
Say some nice things about me on there.
I put you over a little bit.
We're getting to the lovely wife section here.
Ask me when I'm going to be on it.
She said she'll be on the podcast any day of the week.
Bet. Oh, well, you know what? You met your wife through professional wrestling.
I did meet my wife through professional wrestling. So it is a gift and a curse, I say. No, my wife used to
tell that story.
She used to do crew for Ring of Honor with Mary and Wayne, who used to do the music and the lights for Ring of Honor. And she would go and help them hang curtains, or she would ring the bell or set up chairs or whatever you needed to do at a show. And we met through MySpace. Shout out Tom from MySpace. And
shout out Tom. Tom doesn't get shouted out enough, frankly.
Right. It's all these other guys, but Tom, Tom never hurt anybody. So shout out Tom from MySpace. We met on the internet. We talked on AOL Instant Messenger, and then we decided that she was going to come visit, and we've been together ever since 2008. So, like I said, a gift and a curse.
And wrestling, I mean, you're a wrestling couple. You're a family that loves wrestling. You're raising your children in professional wrestling. Talk about how you integrate wrestling in your family life.
Yeah, always, people will be like, "Hey, man, well, what's been up?" And it's always like, real life and wrestling, man, and trying to balance them together. And thankfully now my son is super into pro wrestling. He was a big I guess Logan Paul YouTube watcher. Ooh. And when Logan Paul started feuding with Ricochet, he was super into that. And then for his birthday that year, I actually asked my old pal Ricochet to do a little birthday greeting for my son. And
very
you would have
cool.
thought, you would have thought I gave him the moon and the sun. He was just
a guy. If anyone knows a guy, it's you. Yeah.
And I always. I hate being that guy asking for stuff, but I think because I'm not that guy that always asks for stuff, I think people are like, "Oh, it's Maniwa, I'll do it." So shout out Ricochet. Don't stab me with scissors like you did, Swerve Strickland. But we're a wrestling family, and we're wrestling around with each other. Or I'm power bombing them on the bed, or we always try to tell teachers or doctors like, hey, we're into pro wrestling, so if you see a bruise or something, we're not beating our kids, I promise you. Like, we forearm each other. We're giving diamond cutters to each other, like, I promise you. But my kids, Reed Bentley is Uncle Mark to my kids, not to give out his government name, but
shoot names. I don't know, man.
so it's just wrestling is just we go to Generation Next Pro Wrestling, which is Larry D and Max Sled's promotion, and Larry D's kids love my kids, so then they just go off and play together. And my daughter Tegan Rose will come home and be like, my legs hurt, and I'm like, you know why? Because you ran laps around that building all night. I was on commentary and I watched you just going around and around and around. Like, sit down sometimes and watch the show, I'm begging you.
We have a very similar experience in that regard, because I've been bringing Ava since she was 3 years old. She used to wear princess dresses to wrestling shows until she was like 5.
Right.
And one thing that's really helped me as a father bond with my kid is professional wrestling, because she doesn't really like to watch it on TV as much, but she really likes the live experience, especially at our local place, TWE, because she has a run of the place. Everyone knows her. I feel comfortable with her running around. Those people are our family. That's the boilerplate speech I always give someone I'm starting to date new is, this is my tribe, this is my community, this is my people. I know it's weird and different. This is the life I've chosen. So
absolutely.
And I couldn't be happier for it. But but as a father and as a with a family, it's you even more so. It's just integrating that into your family life. It sounds fantastic, and it sounds like it's been really beneficial for your family.
Yeah, like I said, my kid's super into it now. We watch he's super into WWE right now. Main event Jey Uso and Cody and all these guys, and for a little bit there, he would watch something for 30 seconds before he run off, but now he's watching full shows and invested and can tell me what's going on. And sometimes on Friday night I'll be watching GCW, or I'll be watching an indie show in here, and he'll be in a bedroom somewhere watching SmackDown, and he'll come in and, hey, Paul Heyman just came out, Roman Reigns is going to be in the Royal Rumble. It's like, oh snap, okay, cool. and then Tiffany Stratton's cashing in, so I'd run back there and watch with him to see Tiffany Stratton cash in. And it also helps when the kids are acting up a little bit. You go, hey man, you don't straighten up, I'm not going to let you watch Raw. I'm not going to let you watch, Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or whatever. I told them for that Netflix Raw, and unfortunately here in Louisville, we got crazy snow like that whole week. So he didn't have school the next day, but I told him, leading up to it, like, hey man, if you can, act right and, get up for school the next morning, I'll let you watch, the whole show. And he's like, oh, I got it. And all it took was, he'd be doing something, and I would just say, hey man,
it's a behavior modification tool.
Yeah. I was like, you're gonna miss Raw on Netflix. Oh, I better straighten up.
This has been absolutely great. You're very plugged into the scene there. You mentioned Jackie Thad, as one person to really watch out for from the area. That's been such a ground of breeding wrestlers. Any one or two more guys that we're going to be seeing in 3, 5, 10 years who are going to be like, oh yeah, they started there.
There's a kid that come from Grindhouse called Ethan Heyer. He's a little guy, a very Spike Dudley like wrestler.
Love it.
But he won a ladder match, a 6-person ladder match for a title last year, and he's one of my son's favorite wrestlers. And you see a fan cam, Nick Jr.'s jumping up and down as he's climbing this ladder. No one else is inside. He's climbing this ladder. He's going to get the belt. The dastardly heel of ZDP and Damian Chambers had screwed him over so many times, and now finally he's getting this belt. And Junior's jumping up and down, and he wins the title, and he just starts bawling tears of joy. He's so happy that Ethan Heyer is now this champion. So definitely Ethan Heyer. Like I mentioned, Generation Next Pro Wrestling, Grindhouse Pro Wrestling, which is Too Tough Tony's student promotion. Like I mentioned, they run every last Sunday or every fourth Sunday of the month. They have a lot of hungry kids there. Ethan came from that group. I'm trying to think. The Bruisers are starting to get out there. Kentucky deathmatch guys, not scared to bleed. Robert Catchum and Mitch Malik. Mitch is taking a sabbatical right now. Where Robbie's been doing some stuff with Flophouse and Indy Death Crew and just bleeding buckets everywhere he goes.
Yeah, you had me at not afraid to bleed. Yeah.
Right. He's not. We have the big Rumble show for Grindhouse on the 26th of this month, but at our last show, we did a preview with the winner of the Battle Royal getting the 30th spot and the loser getting the first spot. So it's, there's 20 people or whatever, and Robbie is running at someone in the corner, and, he's taken a backdrop out, but instead of going to this side or this side, he goes straight vertical. And then instead of just like crashing down on the side that he was vertical on, he still somehow like crumbles and like flips with his head kind of to fall on the other side. And it's me and Ben Sheeran of the Ben Sheeran brand.
I know Ben. Yep.
Doing commentary, and we're just like looking at each other like, Catch, you might be dead. Excuse me. I'm trying to think of other people. There's Stevie Ash, who is a women's wrestler student of Larry D and Max Sleds. She stood toe-to-toe with Mickey Knuckles and didn't back down, if that tells you anything.
Wow, yeah. No, yeah. All
Still
in right
very
now.
young in her career. She's had matches with Kinsey Page.
Cool.
She's had a lot of big matches. Very, very young in her career, though. Still making moves. I'm trying to think if there's any. Like I said, it's just like a million names, but like nothing.
Yeah, no, they're all
stands
popping.
out.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. You are a very entertaining social media follow, and you're always dropping. You from one to another. You always, you're always dropping shows you're on and names you see and things like that. Would highly recommend following you on any of the socials.
I appreciate that.
But let's close out the show. You giving your socials and how people can find you, and if people want to book you as a commentator, if people want to just book you to help out with the show, if people just want to bend your ear because I'm very blessed to know a lot of people who know a lot about wrestling, and the two people I know who love wrestling the most are you and Emil.
Thank you, man. And that's a great company. Emil's a longtime homie. I was in a group chat with Emil, Reed Bentley, our friend Lowercase Dan, and a few other people. And it started off as a ECW Masters tape bulk buy. And everyone threw in, $20 to get these Masters, and then someone converted them to DVD. But it was definitely This Ain't Seinfeld as one of the tapes that we got. Emil's great. I had a blast with him on commentary for GCW. I'm at Nick Maniwa on everything. It's Nick Maniwa. My original AOL screen name that my sister created for me was Nick Man IWA.
I've heard this. Yes, I've heard this.
And then it eventually, with Dave Prazak, Brent Blades, who was a IWA Mid-South referee, and Chris Hero, they started calling me Maniwa because of Grand Maniwa from Michinoku Pro. And actually, as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, however old I was, I was probably 13, 14, tried to fight it. Like, no, it's Nick Man IWA. And then finally it was just like, yeah, I'm Nick Maniwa. And then, once IWA stopped running and died, people were like, you got to change your name. And I'm like, I can't, man. Like, too many people don't know Nick Glenn. So like, I got it. Like, Rob Naylor was very upset that, he found out my real name on Facebook. He was like, I thought your name was Maniwa this whole time. And I don't know who Nick Glenn is. But yeah, I'm Nick Maniwa on everything, on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I think TikTok's about to die, but I'm Nick Maniwa on TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you can find me. Nick Maniwa on Cash App. If you want to send me something because I'm cute,
Yeah,
that would be
please
great.
do. Please do. You're adorable. Yeah.
I do offer post commentary if you have a show that doesn't have commentary and you would like me to be on there.
A wise investment.
And it's a little bit cheaper than my in-person rate. So, you definitely, you see my wife sit down next to me. You want to peer?
Oh shit! Is this live?
It's not live. We're not streaming it.
Hi.
At Just Bee's Knees, she has adult content if you want to buy it.
Okay.
Don't talk about my adult content.
Hit her up if you want to buy content from me. I have it as well.
All right, we're gonna close there. We're gonna close there. Nick, man, what a guy! What a guy! Just thank you.
But yeah, man, I had a blast. We could have done this 3 or 4 more hours just
Oh
talking.
yeah, I know 100%. Yeah,
Nonsense. I definitely come back anytime you want me on here. Yeah.
No, I'm next.
I told Just Beat Knees, I was like, yeah, I'm doing a podcast with Boston Nuga. And she was like, what? Are you serious? I was like, you damn right I am. I was like, he asked me, and I feel like the bell of the ball being asked. So I had to do it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing the show. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and keep going independent wrestling. It's a blast.
Here.
Hold on one second.
Well,